My interest in the Population Health Academy focuses mostly on how we think about our efforts to improve things. There is no doubt that efforts to improve are widespread, that they're well-intentioned, that people are often trying very hard, and yet oftentimes our results are not just unsatisfactory, but actually things seem to get worse. So why is that? And I think we may benefit from some insights, some lessons really from systems theory and the scientific method. Let me perhaps give you a quick illustration. If you look at this slide, you'll see that we have data from a team of workers listed from Mary down to Carl over 12 weeks. All workers have been through the same training program, all are working under identical conditions, all are undertaking an identical task. And we're able to record with accuracy, there are no data errors, the number of serious errors made by each worker per week. And the question is posed to people who might be interested in improving things in this case as to what would you do? So often people typical managers, leaders would focus on EVA because EVA has the highest number of errors, a total of 7. And sometimes people will also suggest that we should perhaps look at Mary and Joe and others who've got no errors to try and learn from them. We could offer them perhaps some sort of performance-related pay to recognize their superior performance. We could offer EVA some sort of retraining or perhaps ultimately sacking EVA. And others have also suggested there may be some cyclical patterns, perhaps week 4 and 7 are kind of the worst weeks. And if I said to you that actually all of those things are wrong, it would surprise most of us. In fact, about 2 or 3 out of 1,000 people generally get this right. Most of us actually get it wrong. The reason all those things are wrong is because this data was generated in 1993 by a random number generator on a computer. And all you see here are sequential draws from a random number generator. And they've just been laid out in the form of a table with labels for workers on the left-hand side. This variation that you see here is entirely down to chance. It's nothing to do with the workers at all. But most of us, most leaders, actually fail to understand the information in variation and fail to understand or visualize the role of the system. Any attempt to identify a worker as being the best of the worst would actually be fundamentally flawed. So if you look at another slide, another image, this is an everyday object. Just have a quick look at that and try and work out what you think it might be. And what we find is that most people can't see, at least immediately, what it is. But when you present the object in its original form, it's immediately recognizable as a bicycle. And herein lie some very important insights from systems theory. First and foremost, when a system is taken apart, as on the left, it actually loses its essence. It is no longer recognizable as a system. It does not retain the defining properties of the original system. Whereas on the right, we recognize this bicycle immediately as a system. And the system has three key features. It is a network of interdependent components that work together to accomplish the aim. These three features, this notion of interdependence, this notion of working together, and this notion of an aim, are key characteristics of a system. And when we're thinking about integrated care systems as a way to deliver population health management, then those system leaders need to be aware of the characteristics of a system and how easy it is to lose sight of the system when the system is actually taken apart. Some of the lessons from systems theory: if a system is optimized, the parts will not be. And if the parts are optimized, the whole will not be. And an example of that would be an organization that hires the best people, but if they don't work together, then clearly disaster looms. One of the lessons from systems theory is components left to themselves can become selfish, competitive, independent profit centers that destroy the system. And the secret to a successful system is cooperation, not competition. And the job of leaders is to remove the barriers to cooperation. And a key barrier to cooperation is performance management and competition. This kind of financial system that is used to create some sort of reward and punishment environment, which is then designed to try and motivate improvement efforts, actually leads to undermining cooperation, because it creates a competitive environment where every component thinks about itself. Some more lessons. Without an aim, there is no system, or rather obvious statement, but one that is quite challenging to realize in the real world, is how everybody recognizes the aim of a system. And it's the job of leaders to define what that aim is. The bigger the system, the greater the challenge. So often people would start small. Systems fail at the boundaries. And if you think about the bicycle, if you see a broken bicycle, it's broken not within components, but actually between components. And that's generally the case. Systems fail at the boundaries. And the secret to strengthening our systems or improving the performance of our systems is actually to strengthen the relationship between boundaries. And every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets. The data that you saw earlier about the error rates by workers, those error rates were entirely down to the system, had nothing to do with the workers at all. If we want to reduce error rates, we have to change the system, because that's what you see there is a result of the system, not its components. And according to Deming, who was a world leader on improvement, he thought that about well over 90% of the trouble actually lies with the system itself. And he was very clear that the system is the responsibility of those who design and manage it, not those who work inside it. And a system must be managed. It will not manage itself. Here's another example of how we can easily fall into a bear trap if we're not aware of systems and systemic thinking. Consider this scenario where we have 3 departments in an organization, and the leadership team of that organization set aside some money to help improve things, and they asked the departments to send in their improvement plans, business cases, costed proposals, which will show a benefit case. And Department A sends in 3 plans, Department B 2, and Department C 3. So Department A's plan shows a positive impact for Department A, and its second plan a positive, and the third plan a positive, and so on for the other departments. And you could see that in each case there is a positive benefit to that plan for that department, and you might be tempted to fund all of those plans. But if you were to look at the system as a whole, if you look at Department A's first plan, which has a positive impact on Department A, actually, it has a negative impact on B, a negative impact on C, and the net impact on the system is actually negative. So if we had funded all 3 plans for A and the 2 for B and the 3 for C, despite our expenditure and our best intention, actually the impact on the entire system as a whole would be a double negative. Whereas from a systems theory point of view, the only plans that make sense in terms of funding and implementing are the plans where the net impact on the system, the right-hand side here, are positive. And what you see is if you only funded 3 of the plans, the total impact on the system would be a triple positive, as opposed to the double negative we saw earlier. But we have to acknowledge that in each of these plans, although the system as a whole benefits, there are some departments that do not. So in this case, for example, the second plan for Department A clearly benefits, B doesn't, C benefits, but the net is a benefit to the whole. So when you try and optimize the whole, you do actually sub-optimize individual components. And on the previous slide, if you try and optimize components, you actually sub-optimize the whole. And a systems leader needs to optimize the whole, not the components. And one of the things that will stop this plan being executed, the first plan here, is if we do not find a way to address the negative impact on Department B. That's why there needs to be cooperation between these departments to deliver the aim of the system. And we need to help understand how we remove the barriers to cooperation so that Department B actually supports the plan that is taking place to improve the system as a whole. And in my experience, most of the issues relate to finance. If there's a financial penalty for one component, but the plan is to optimize the whole, then that one component often acts as a major resistor to that improvement plan. But if we recognize the financial system as being a system, and every system is perfectly designed to deliver the results that it does, then actually until we change the financial system, we will continue to have resistance from different components, even though we're trying to optimize the whole. Here's an overall picture, another way to think about what we've just said. On the left-hand side, you can see these are various arrows of various lengths. Think of these as components in a system. They're all trying their best. They're all working hard. They're all sincerely trying to deliver what they think is the right thing to do. And in the background, the dotted line is trying to indicate an arrow which is representing the aim of the system. And because the aim of the system is not clear, these arrowheads are essentially pointing in kind of different directions. And it's the job of leadership and management to take us from the situation on the left and to transform us to the situation on the right. The situation on the right is the bold arrow. The aim is very clear. And all the arrows are now aligned to the overall aim. And in moving from left to right, we recognize that it's not the length of any arrow that is important. It's actually the orientation and alignment of the arrow that's important. And this is the job of leadership, to move us from the left to the right. And I see integrated care systems and population health management as being an attempt to do that. And that's why it is very exciting. And it's a great privilege, really, to be part of this attempt to do something in such a radical way, which has the potential to deliver such benefits for the people and populations we serve. There is one other thing I would like to make a plea for, and that's really recognizing the importance of using the scientific method. The scientific method has been the cornerstone of the progress of mankind in terms of technological advances that we see. And one of the reasons it's been such a great servant to us is because the scientific method has this beautiful characteristic that if applied sincerely and with some rigor, it self-corrects. And that's actually very optimistic as a message, that if you apply the scientific method, you don't have to start off with perfect knowledge and being 100% correct. You start off with having vague ideas, some theories, some notions, which actually you become expert at through repeated application of the scientific method. And the progress of the scientific method is measured not by its outcome, it's actually measured by the learning that takes place. And here I'd like to illustrate on this slide how it is that things that we can start off being completely wrong, but we can still learn. And that's the beauty of the scientific method. And if our improvement efforts would take on this principle of the scientific method and learning, then actually the progress of an improvement project is determined, at least in one key aspect, by how much we learn from it. So this is Chanticleer's rooster. He crowed every morning, putting forth all his energy, and flapped his wings. The sun came up. The connection was clear. His crowing caused the sun to come up. There was no question about his importance. There was a snag. He forgot one morning to crow. The sun came out anyhow. So that's his theory. And his theory was fundamentally flawed. But without articulating his theory and then comparing it to the empirical data, we see that he would have nothing to revise, nothing to learn. And so our improvement efforts need to incorporate this notion of theory and learning. And it's through that repeated iteration of theory and revision and learning that we will chart our progress with trying to improve the health and care systems that we're responsible for.